And just like that, boom, I am supposedly live. Let me just do the standard audio check at the beginning to make sure I'm audible on the stream end. Let's check it. Sounds pretty darn good. Awesome. That's right. I've been stuck on this sketch for 20,000 years and I am not stopping. So let's get straight to it. Because you know what? I don't have sponsors. I don't want sponsors. I just want to draw things. That's right. So last week I was tragically tired, and I'm also tired today, but I also have a bunch of energy, and this kind of, I'm in a kind of dual, like dual bipolar state, whatever the hell you call it. Point being, I have a lot of energy. We'll see how well this goes. So I have a couple notes from last time I looked at this critically and figured out what's wrong with it. So let me pull them up so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so what do we have? We have what do we have? The torso and head are too relaxed. Okay, let me get this to full opacity. So torso and head are too relaxed in the current duration of this, which is, hold on, let's delete that. Okay, so why are they too relaxed? Well, if you look at like how the spine of this guy is, it's like basically straightforward, right? Now, what I'd like it to be is I'd like it to be a bit more, you know, curved as he's leaning in. And then also this causes the shoulders to be in a bit of a different position. So that's going to be something I'm going to consider. We also have shoulders being perpendicular to the gun, while they should be more at a 45-degree angle. I think this is not that... This is probably more of a change in how this part of the body is than the actual shoulders, because the way the color of the shirt is currently, it is looking like the character's facing, like the torso is facing this way, while what it should be is it should be the top of the torso is like 45 degrees, you know, maybe towards the camera at the moment, and then the lower part of the body is in congruence with the gun, kind of. And this mostly applies to the pelvis? I think it's called the pelvis. I've asked the question of what this is called last time, and I cannot remember the answer, so... Alright, next point I've written down is... Yeah, so rotate the shoulders. The shoulders probably can mostly stay where they are. It's mostly about the collar of the shirt and like where the front of the body is. The head should be pushed a little bit down, so the guy looks like he's, you know, leaning and not, you know, relaxed, chill, with just, you know, normal head to torso connection. Probably normal neck position would be a way more understandable way to phrase that, but I only came up with it after I said it, so please update that record in your brain and pretend I never said anything else. Okay, so the back leg should also be slightly higher and the front should be lower, so should move the front leg to be a bit more open. Maybe so closer to that, and this leg should instead be more higher, but also bent. So a little bit more like that, I think, is going to be better for this pose, because he's got his legs like feet together, and that shouldn't be like that for a pose like this. And even if you hold an object like a gun in your hand, you're gonna have a hard time squeezing both of those legs in with the gun and the arms and such. So that requires a bit of correction, and the right elbow is too much like this in this direction. It should be more like along the body and then closer to the arm, to the gun, so that if he's like curved like this and looking like this, all right, it looks like he's leaning, but he also looks like he has his elbow, his whole like upper arm is closer to his body because he's holding something, you know, under his arm. Like he's holding the stock of the gun to stabilize it. So he shouldn't be having his arm like this, because then there's nothing, you know, between this and this. There's nothing putting pressure on this to stick to his body and stabilize. So the pose makes less sense. And if the pose makes less sense, it feels worse to the viewer, even subconsciously. Or even if it doesn't feel worse to the viewer, it feels worse to me. Because I've trained my eye enough to actually spot these. So in short, you know, there's plenty to fix. This is the nth iteration of this. There's basically each layer of this document is just an attempt at drawing the same thing over and over again. I've spent over 12 hours already iterating on it, and I'm not done yet. I'm not satisfied. I'm still pushing forward. So let's find out what the future has in store, right? So I'm gonna try and lay out kind of the new pose here. So okay, so you see the changes immediately to like, this is the curve I'd like his body to have. Not exact yet. For now, I'm just kind of trying to get the key shape down. Then this arm needs to be alongside the body, probably only slightly going out of it. And then, you know, this line being in this direction. Then you have the other shoulder being kind of extended forward, and that leads to this other hand on the gun. Now if I do this angle, instead of being like this angle becomes way closer to vertical. And then you have the stock of the gun. You know, this is just a rough outline, so I'm just gonna ignore anything really, just to figure out, it's like, is this angle more correct? And then what we also do is, this leg is now moved a bit forward, but we move it. Okay, so what we probably don't do is we probably don't have the leg go in this direction, because the previous iteration was already too far in that direction. So what we do is probably move this part of the leg like this, and then this part of the leg extended a bit downward. This is not exactly correct, but it's a start. It's a start, and I'll work from this forward, right? This is a thick leg, very thick, but I think it's more correct in terms of angle, closer to what I actually want to achieve. So I'm gonna roll with it, and I'll figure out a better solution later. So then we get the other leg, kind of like this. Yeah, something like this. Something like this I think is pretty good. This leg is too thick, entirely too thick. But other than that, if you look at how this is like, he's leaning a lot more than he was. The head I drew is just traced, so that's not very good. Gotta get him to lean a little bit, because he should be leaning in this position. So but make sure he's actually facing forward still, even when he's leaning. So something like this, and then make sure the head is turned. So like the head is facing forward, but the collar of the shirt isn't, because the whole front of the torso is tilted towards the camera, and so it goes a little bit differently, right? So have something like this. I think this is pretty good. in terms of like a rough outline of what it should be. What I think I'm gonna do is I'm going to add a lot of opacity to it, and then transparency, reduce opacity, and then I'll grab this layer and I'll go through it once again, trying to correct what has happened. And maybe even what I'll do is I'll have a copy of it, and I'll now, instead of drawing it from scratch, I'm going to edit this copy of it so that it looks better. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with the face and head. Which is not necessarily the brightest idea, but I think it's a pretty easy thing to do compared to all the other fixes. So move the head forward and down a little bit. Now we deselect, that didn't render. We deselect that to make sure we can actually edit the thing. I'm hearing horrible noises. I don't know why. I don't know what the hell that is. Anyway, now we make the shirt face this direction, basically. This should already be better than it was. Now this shoulder is going somewhere like this. The other shoulder should not be, because I think there's a hint of it being there. It shouldn't be. It should be lower and such. So perhaps what we do is we grab this, we extend it, we have the neck go a little bit like this, and we have the shoulder go down as a hint. Add the hair. Something like this, yeah, something like this, something like this. Now we correct this leg to have a bigger curve than it had. Something like this, perhaps, I think. Okay, so we do a little curve like that. Now this strikes me as incorrect. I don't want to make him fat on accident. That could easily happen, but I don't want to do it. I don't think there are any fat squids in Splatoon. At least I haven't seen any. Which, to be fair, I did not play the game, because I'm not paying Nintendo for an online subscription and a console to play one game. So, you know, my experience is somewhat limited to what I actually saw of the game online, but I still liked it enough to the point where I want to draw stuff about it, so go figure. This should be way more open than I'm doing it. It should be, yeah, it should be way more like that. And then there's like this funny chain this guy has. Something like that. Now, we need to fix this elbow, and that's going to make a whole lot of difference, because that changes like the whole angle of the shoulder and such here. So the shoulder should probably go a little bit out and away. And this curve is already iffy, let's say. But this is already a significant change. Now it looks like his shoulder is up, and the elbow is going to look like it's more closely aligned with the end. So then we do the watch, which is a huge part of this arm, and we do the, I don't know what the hell these are called, but the end of the shirt. And then we kind of pretend we know how to do clothing, which I'm just learning to do. I'm not very good at it at the moment. Okay, now I've kind of overdone it. He's got his shoulder a little bit too high up, but most of the idea is there. Yeah. No, I already think this is better than it used to be. Like, look. See? Shoulder is more... Yep, his shoulders, he's leaning in. His shoulder's going up. His torso is facing a slightly different direction. The other shoulder, his right shoulder, or his left shoulder, if you look at it from the original, his left shoulder is tell somewhat wrong. I'm not so sure about this. I've got to check it, but that's an improvement definitely. This leg still needs work, but we'll work on it. Hi, Yeast. I'm drawing. This is what my life has turned into. I'm just drawing the same thing over and over again. It's fun though. Well, is it fun? Cool Splatoon girl. I don't know. Does this look like a girl? I mean, I guess the Splatoon characters all look a bit feminine. They've not. Kind of makes sense too, if you think about it. The lore of the game. I'll give him a beard. We'll fix this issue, or maybe we'll not. We'll see. Maybe it's the long hair also. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. Let's get the shoe. Is there lore to Splatoon? There's so much lore to Splatoon. One cool example of a thing they are doing in I've never played Splatoon either, just so it's clear. I'm not buying a console and paying Nintendo for online to play one game, but something that's very cool about Splatoon is there's a lot of songs in the soundtrack, and each one of the songs in the soundtrack has like a band in the game associated with it. So you've got like bands of characters in the game, like not playable. They are basically like something that's completely aside from the main gameplay. But you've got bands in universe that perform the music. So you've got like that whole aspect of it. It's pretty cool. And frankly, I don't know much about the lore, like of the story of the games, but I find the world to be very interesting. I think it's supposed to be set in a post-apocalyptic Earth where like all humans died and then squids took over and octopi, I suppose, took over for some reason. I don't know exactly, but you know what? The universe is pretty cool, visually, at the very least. I like it. Plenty of other people do like it as well. I didn't quite realize that the game's that big. It's pretty large. It's also a weird case of a shooter game made by Nintendo. It's like, would you ever expect Super Mario World War 2, right? I don't know where that thought came from. Squids usually take over after humanity fades. Yeah, it do be like that sometimes, That's probably why they don't want us to go into Chernobyl, right? It's probably Splatoon is actually there. We just are not allowed. The government doesn't want us to know it. I hope I don't get the stream taken down for sharing this classified information. Mario World War 2 would be a crazy game. I mean, can you imagine? You like run around the trenches and then you eat shrooms and stuff. Like because they've pioneered having like human 3D models in with Mario, like he is in Odyssey, right? Because you go to like New Donk City, I think. What a wonderful name, by the way. And you see like regular humans next to Mario. So why not have that and have them go to war, and Mario's just in the middle of that and he's like collecting stars. I just really like the mental image of that. Also, it would be extremely offensive to some people, which would make it even more funny. Okay, is this leg better or worse? I'm not... No, this leg, there's something wrong with this leg. The other one is also wrong, but differently. I'm erasing the leg. I'm erasing the leg. I think I've wanted to conserve stuff that shouldn't be conserved, and I already have a sketch of the more correct leg I'd like to implement. So now it's something like this. Right, we get the leg. We get rid of the other leg. You don't need 2 legs at the moment. You only need 1, but the one needs to be done properly. So there's, I think, this kind of angle for a leg at this from this perspective. The problem is, if you look at like Splatoon characters, they have ridiculously thin everything. They have very thin arms and legs, and they have hefty hands and feet, and like very big, especially with shoes. It's like this, like you get those massive sneakers, but the legs are like sticks. I've heard something about them canonically not even having bones, as a side note. I mean, probably be in accordance with how cephalopods are in real life, but I don't know. Bones seem to be a pretty useful addition if you want to like exist in on Earth, kinda. I don't know. I've enjoyed having bones myself. It's been a pretty pleasant experience to have bones. It's pretty useful, you know. I mean, you can break, not really necessary. Well, I don't know. How often do you like wanna have a shape? If they don't have bones, how come they have a humanoid structure? It's like the humanoid structure is like this because we have bones. If you want to be transported by paint, thanks YouTube for covering that word with a fucking hard button. I can't hide. I mean, I could inspect elemented, but stupid idiots. Please let me click out. If you want to be transported by paint, if you have bones, that's the point of fiction. Nah, the point of fiction is to be absolutely autistic about it until it's not fiction anymore. What? You want a fictional universe which works on its own rules? Nah, can't have that. You better make those rules make sense for me in my world. It is, you know, there's an interesting question to be asked here, because you've got the question of how far detached from our reality can you be, you know, as provided you maintain internal consistency. So like if you set up rules, you follow them, right? Provided you do that, how far can you actually stray from our world and our logic, our way of doing things, before the story becomes completely unrelatable to people? Weird question, perhaps. I've not really heard anyone ask it, but it is interesting to me. It's like, okay, because sure, like if you make physically, no, I don't really mean physically. I mean, physically we've seen like all kinds of cartoons about, I don't know, a sentient box, right? But all of those kinds of things are done by anthropomorphizing. That's a hard word to pronounce. Anthropomorphizing other kinds of characters, right? So you take like something like a cardboard box and you make it act like a human, and then we derive all the feelings, I think, from all of that, because we see the human experience despite that thing not having the physical appearance of a thing, right? But if you go by the idea of internal logic, you could have, you know, you could presuppose a species, or, you know, in your fiction, whatever it is, that doesn't operate by human rules. It's very interesting. Humanoid shape. Yeah, anthropomorphized, I think, is the word. So you could have a different set of rules for those characters, and then it's interesting if people could relate to that, because you know we relate to the humanity, right? But I wonder like what the reaction would be, right? You have something, for example, that has a completely different idea of what you should and shouldn't do. It's like you take some species that presupposes that, I don't know, stealing perfectly fine, like there's no property, there's no sense of having property, and you have them act, and they act in a completely different way to humans. Would necessarily be a type of species like cat, shark, or anything from a family of species. I'm not sure what you're referring to be honest. You can't really imagine something that live without nothing in common with no earthly animals. Well, I think you can have that. I think you can have the way different shapes, because you can like have totally alien kind of blobs, and you could absolutely make a fiction that's you know, that humans connect to, about a bunch of weird shaped alien blobs. But I think it would be way like what would take people right out of the experience would be if you had a story which, you know, where characters behave internally consistent with the logic as written, but completely different from how humans would behave. Yeah, it would have to, like, usually well, the way we think about life is tied to how we see it on Earth, right? How we see it expressed on Earth. But within fiction, right, you can absolutely have a completely different set of rules. And it's interesting because our set of rules is surely also formed by our circumstances. So if you change the circumstances of, you know, a species, for example, uh, they would likely have a completely different set of approaches to life and such. Right? That's, you can explore that within a fiction, but I think if you do, you are likely going to lose a certain bunch of viewers, or like listeners. You can have a triangle that speaks, but it's not really living like we understand life. Yeah, something like that, right? You can have something that even looks human and acts in the like physical way, like moves like a human, but in terms of like decision making and thinking, nothing like human, right? It's an interesting thought. I don't know if I'm doing it. I don't know if I'm doing it justice. Probably not, because I'm kind of doing two things at once as per usual. But it's an, at the very least, an interesting thought experiment to think about something like that. It's like would be even more of a society change. Yeah, yeah. You would basically have something that works entirely different to us. Could be interesting also, like a because with something like that, you could really have, you could really give people the experience, if you wrote it, of just interacting with something completely and fundamentally different to what they are and how they act. That's easy to think about. Change an ancient habit. Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Exactly. Like you change a presupposition that we have inbuilt in us, and then you imagine what would the world be like if it was removed. You know, and then you just have to actually stick to it. So you have to identify where in your thinking you have that presupposition, and then question how would I be thinking if I didn't have this, if I didn't, you know, pay attention to it, if I didn't even have the concept in my mind in the first place, which is very, very difficult to do if it's something that, you know, it's a very commonly obvious thing to have, or to have work. There's probably already plenty of like existing fiction that takes this concept and does it pretty well. If I had to guess, that's most likely plenty of things you could absolutely just point to that do it. I'm just not. I've frankly not consumed enough fiction to just have things like this, you know, at the forefront of my mind. And no, I've been kind of. It's a running joke that I've seen nothing, but it's true. Seen nothing. Will the paint be yellow? I don't know if the paint will be yellow. That's a question from a while back. That question is also a trap, I am aware. Fine, I'll do it. I'll walk right into it and see what happens. Nothing possibly bad. Also, the fight or flight reflex, you can change that by copy or act dead, like some other animals do, and imagine an entire society from that. Yeah, you could, because it wouldn't, like, everything would look different. Because like all of this forms, you know, all of this forms a different kind of. All of this forms different people, right? They change every aspect of society. Yeah, exactly. It would also present a challenge because if you wanna, you know, if you wanna get people invested in a character that doesn't share a lot in common with normal humans as we understand them, like you would have to, you know, you'd have to build in the audience an understanding of that character to the point where they can actually relate to it, which is a whole another challenge in itself. So I would be very interested in seeing something like this. Maybe it exists. Like if anyone, that would maybe be a movie I'd actually watch, or like a book I'd read. Probably gonna be harder with the book, but you know, could happen. I'm not excluding it entirely. As a concept, it's just a large time commitment. Speaking of large time commitment, what I've been doing a lot for the past like 2 days is I've been trying to figure out how to render a Rubik's Cube in 3D in a program that was very clearly not designed to render anything 3D. But they've recently added the option to draw SVG paths on the screen. And so I've been kind of I have been tempted to make something like this. Actually, somebody just asked, it's like, is it possible? Could you, like, entirely theoretically, do you think, would it be possible to make a working Rubik's Cube? And I was like, I mean, actually, you really are tempting me to just spend a bunch of time on making a Rubik's Cube. The thing is, I don't think there's any way for me to make my autistic rambling about that stuff entertaining without it turning into an why is this not working, etc., etc. festival. I'm not sure how entertaining that would be, so I'll probably stick to doing it offline. Have I been back on the city? No, I've not touched that project. I've generally barely touched drawing for a while. Like I've been doing this thing for like a couple of minutes at a time, like iteration at a time, for a while, just to see how it goes. And I've been, you could probably say I've been slacking, but it's not really true. I've been just, I've had plenty of life things to process. So I've not really been devoting a lot of time to thinking about anything else, really. It's resource intensive. You know, thinking about life is pretty resource intensive. You gotta kind of balance it out. Sometimes you gotta just. Sometimes you just gotta accept. It's like, okay, I'm spending a lot of brain power on this, so maybe this is not the best moment to be doing side projects, maybe this is not the best moment to be devoting a lot of thought to things, So maybe just take it easy for a while on these and just, you know, deal with the issue at hand, and you'll be able to return to, you know, to the cool stuff later. Just kind of have been going about this, just like, yeah, I just need to deal with it. After I've dealt with it, I can get onto stuff like this. Last week I've been so tired, dude. I've started the stream, and like throughout 30 minutes of it, of the starting, I've deteriorated to the point I've had trouble constructing sentences in English. So I had to stop because I was just like, no. This is not happening. I can't be like this. This is supposed to be entertaining for people. I want you to come in VC. Tired won't be here for a while. I don't know. I don't really want to talk at the moment, to be honest. I'm just I'm just rambling, but I don't want to focus. I don't want to focus up essentially on talking, and I also wouldn't want to just, you know, sit in VC and barely understand anything. I'm gonna probably just, you know, draw however much of this I can take before falling asleep, and then I'll go to sleep. Okay, is this like a significant improvement over what it was? I feel like I've kind of the legs are weird again, I think, and the body, like, is definitely leaning more, but I think the legs are completely bad. I think the legs need to be entirely replaced. Probably. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna delete these. The left one, I think they both are completely wrong. And I think I finally understand why. So let's do another layer for that. So the way I have these legs, kind of, is like I can see it when I curve my own body like this. The problem I have is I'm trying to start the legs like the body is going like this, and then you have the legs. And this is not true, because the body is going like this, and, you know, the legs start a bit more here. So if I have this, it's going to look better. Now, whoops. What the hell kind of keyboard shortcut was that? That was insert, I think. So what I'm thinking would be, it's like, if I have the body like this, right, then the line where the hands begin is somewhere like there. And then he's like just zip up. It's something like this. And now he's got like a torso that's reasonably long. Would you look at that? This is actually really good, I think. This is a bit of a quick doodle for the legs, but I think this is honestly what it was supposed to, this is kind of what it was supposed to be. This one is too long, but other than that, I'm thinking this is way better than the previous ones. Is it? Now I'm gonna be doubting myself for the next 20 years of my life. It's over. What's this? Oh no. Brain's clearly slowing down. Let's take a good look at this. I think his right thigh is too long compared to the rest of the leg. The angle of it is probably changeable a bit, but the basic idea is correct, I think, to where the leg should start. It's like it needs a bit more work, but it's absolutely a step in the right direction. So We try something like this maybe. And then the food is very, very lazily done. So I'll just redo it. No. How do I feed in 3D? I can't. I don't get them. I have two of those. I have 2 feet, and I don't get how they work. They are weird. They are a weird shape that I do not understand how it exists in 3D space. I can't draw it properly. I just legs difficult. You know how some feet, I mean not legs. Legs are also difficult, but you know, some people say it's like very hard to draw hands. I'm having a way easier time drawing hands. Maybe this is because I see my own hands way more often than I see my own feet. That is perhaps something to ponder and consider. Okay, this is a bit low for the pants. It's more like that. Now the leg. This is better. It's definitely better, but is it good? Is another question entirely. Like, it's better, but this leg is, I think, incorrect in perspective, because it's not... Like, the upper part is correct, but the lower part is like it's viewed sideways instead of from kind of the front. It's something more like this, I think. As per usual, I am entirely unsure, and I have no convictions about this, but I think this is better in terms of perspective, I'm pretty sure. But maybe even it could be argued that it should be like this. Because look, if I do it like this is closer to what the previous iteration of these legs should have been. Because like one of them is going like down, you see? I think I'm kind of understanding the legs in 3D now a little bit better. Maybe. I am trying to kind of bend reality to my will with these statements, but I think it's... I'm thinking this is mostly good. I'm thinking these legs are mostly good. Now actually this angle is now wrong, because this angle is way too flat. Should be leaning way more. And because you should be leaning way more, what I should be doing is I should be moving the legs slightly, but the problem is that's also on the leg layer, so let me just throw it over to the top layer. We do it like this, and now we can move the legs to fit this angle. Then, you know, the legs are more like this probably. Trying to see like different options for it. Like, of course this is not like the clean transformation and such, but it's gotta be something like this, right? Is it? My head. I'm going insane again. No. No, these are not proportionate. That's a bit of a problem. This one needs to be higher up. So it's more like that. And then like this. I think You see, this is you can live notice the process of learning taking place, where my brain has information forcibly inserted into it, and it's slightly painful. That's basically how it goes. You just ignore the desperate cry for help your brain issues, and then you just push on forward with drawing, and you figure out if it looks good or not, and then you repeat ad nauseum until it looks right. And then with each iteration, you might be tempted to say it looks right now, but then you give it a little bit of time, you know, you critically analyze it once again, and it turns out it's like, nah, I see it. There's a problem here and here and here, and if I do this, this and that, it is going to be fixed. And then you do that, and you notice more flaws. And there's always a point. You can really just, like, it's completely up to you in any case. When do you want to stop with this process? Like, when you say, it's like, okay, this maybe is not this is not perfect by any means, but it is what I want to put out. It's like I've achieved whatever goal I've been going for, or maybe I'm satisfied with the amount of time I've spent on this and the current state of it. You can stop it at any time, but the whole point, for me at least, is, you know, I just want to do it. I don't even know why, frankly. There's just something inside of me that is demanding. I sit down and I try this until it works, and then I sit down and I try it until it works. And if it doesn't work, well, then you just add more time onto it, and eventually, through sheer luck, at the very least, you'll figure it out. But there's a high chance, if you continue applying brain power to the whole situation, you will end up with a working product before you can figure it out by random chance. I'm kind of worried I have my live chat frozen. I hope that's not the case, but I'm going to refresh the window just in case. No, I don't think. I think it's not frozen. But I'd rather check. I'd rather check, because I've had YouTube pull this trick on me like twice already, where my chat has just been frozen. I missed a bunch of messages from people, which I felt somewhat bad about it, you know. It's like, there's people typing messages in the chat, and I didn't catch them because YouTube is doing YouTube things, which is not working. I am thinking this iteration is the best one yet. This looks pretty darn good to me compared to the previous version. Let me group these so I can hide them together. See, I've made the shoulder more aligned with the body and holding the gun under his arm. I've made him lean in a little bit by moving the head forward a bit. I've moved the shirt back, which is still not correct. I've corrected a particular issue that's been bugging me around the trigger finger, which was clearly not in a place where it could pull the trigger. Rather, it's too high on the side of the gun. Like, it looks like it would collide with this sheet here instead of being able to go click on the trigger. So I've raised the gun a bit. I should probably also lower the hand a little bit to accommodate for that as well. Yeah, I should do it. I'm gonna do it. Give me a sec. Okay, so let's select this. Do I move it with the watch? I think I do. Surely. I'm doing a very bad job of selecting that, but anyway, we move it a little bit back and a little bit down. And then we erase these. Make sure that has some space down there for the trigger and such. We add these lines, which are supposed to represent something. I really like this little line here. I'm a fan of it. like adds a little bit of detail. Although there's a slight problem with it because it covers the neck and chest area a lot, and so now I kind of don't have a good way to indicate where the torso is turned to. It's like I've got this shoulder being up, but it's also the shoulder's also being covered by the tentacle hair, which is kind of a problem. I'm not sure. Maybe it's something like this. I'm not convinced. I'm not. That all, dude. That sounded like the Among Us sound. My brain. What has happened to my brain? It's infected. There's no hope for me, I think. I'm going to apply for Canadian healthcare. ASAP. Doctor, I've... You come into the doctor's office, you just say, "Doctor, I'm sus." And he like says, "Okay then, well, here's your suicide booth. Go ahead, enjoy." I'm going to bed. Alright, good night. I swear at some point I'm going to play Counter-Strike and we can play Counter-Strike, but I need to not be as tired as I've been recently because it's not gonna end up well when I can't process information at any like decent amount of speed. So, you know, not now. No, don't. No. This is not a good moment for Counter-Strike. I'm not playing it either. Good. You should be a smart member of society and just flop over into bed and get some rest. So, best of sleeps to you, gentlemen. Have the bestest of sleeps. You are not going to bed? What? You are not? You're not gonna have a nice sleep? That's rude. I'm drinking a lot from all September. I'll work now? I am confused. You just said you were going to bed. Have I been tricked? And yeah, heading to bed. Okay, What the hell is this noise, dude? It's like someone's doing some angle grinder work at 11 p.m. Crazy people. Like uni work at uni. Okay, good luck on that as well. Have as much fun as it is possible to have with uni assignments, which is limited, but maybe there's some of it that could be gleamed. Okay, this is kind of cool, almost. Alright, bye. This is kind of almost sort of cool. But I'm thinking I'm moving this. Good night. I'm thinking, what the hell are those noises, dude? Who's doing this outside my window at 11? Not at all a good time. Stop it. Okay, now I've clawed back some space for the things around the neck. I'm trying to introduce... additional elements to hint the viewer to the viewer where the neck is actually located and how it is turned. There's a problem here somewhere, but I think I might need to leave it for future me to figure out what it is exactly, because I'm not seeing it at the moment. There is a problem. I'm seeing that there is a problem. I think what I've done now kind of helps the problem. Maybe. Not fully on board with it yet. I think it does. I think it does. And then probably also need to fix the eye a little bit. Dude, what is that? Stop. The off. Dude, okay, hold on. I've gotta check. Is this an alien invasion? Huh. As soon as I open the window to check, it stops. Curious. Maybe it was the window. I just needed a little reboot. Alright. Having a hard time focusing, I'll be honest, but this is, I'm pretty sure this is the best iteration yet. Pretty convinced it's better than the previous one. It's like he's leaning, he's holding the gun more so, more correct with the trigger finger position. The gun is, I think, slightly more better proportioned. I'm thinking one thing I could do is work on this mag here and just lower the lines, so something like this would be much more appreciated. And then you have a line like this, maybe. I've definitely not paid enough brain attention to guns to have an intuition for these things, but I think this is an improvement. This might actually also need a little bit of a Splatoon makeover, like Splatoon style makeover, or more like wackier kind of gun stuff. But I think this is decently wacky, you know. Don't know for sure. You can never be sure, but from where I am sitting, which is in my chair, looks pretty good. Okay, so the shoulder I think is an improvement overall. The way he's holding the gun itself, I think is an improvement. The legs are also an improvement. Yeah, I think this is pretty much an upgrade to what I used to have, the previous version. This piece of hair here is actually worse though. I'm gonna correct that, because this doesn't even look like a piece of hair. It looks, I mean, it would probably if I colored it, but doesn't quite visually separate itself from the rest of all the stuff around here, so probably want to make sure that doesn't a problem. Yes, indeed. I am an expert level English speaker, how could you tell? Actually, I have never actually really taken an official English test that would determine, because there's like letters to determine proficiency in English. I've never really taken one to find out how proficient I am according to official England English sources test something. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think it particularly matters. Probably matters for some corporations where the paper is the most important, because it's like a pre-filtering method, but like I've seen, I've been in meetings, I've seen how people communicate and are still able to do business, and I think I'm Gucci, pretty much. I doubt that's gonna be a massive problem. It's like if somebody really wants to figure out if I can speak in English, you just, you know, you just talk with me for a little bit, find out. You know, not, of course, you know, I can't say what the result will be, but I'd bet money on myself being able to speak English. It seems to be an accurate description of reality. I am sometimes capable of speaking English. Now, I am also clearly capable of beating a joke to death over and over again for several seconds or even minutes. I don't know how long it's been. Now, a good entertainer would have a joke here, but unfortunately, I departed the joke station without taking the joke with me, and now I've arrived and I've been caught by the joke police, and they've caught me actually not having a joke. So very embarrassing situation for me. Please donate over on something like that. I forgot the. I didn't want to make this video, but my hand was forced. I was stupid and an idiot, and I lost money, and now you all need to pay for that. So please hand me money over on my website, or over on this whatever payment processor website I actually use for the donations. Something like that. Point being, some people like money, and that's it. If a person likes money, that means they have no other aspects to their personality, no morality to speak of, nothing. Obviously, if somebody owns money, they must be deleted. This was written in a book written by some smart person at some point, and no, I cannot link a source. Why would you require me to link a source? Well, do you not believe me when I say things? It's like, I mean, yeah. But there's people that would use that argument unironically. So, you know, keep that in mind probably at all times, because it kind of helps. I forgot what the thought was, but if you're holding it in your mind, then you know. You see, that solves a bunch of problems, because if you hold it in your mind, even if I lose it from mine, which is very likely because I'm rapidly deteriorating into falling asleep, even if I do that, you still have access to the one you've remembered. So it's pretty important. I'm thinking this might be a good point to stop with this before I start embarrassing myself with very incoherent English, and before I inevitably ruin this iteration as well and start the next one. I am thinking this is probably a pretty good hopping off point. So just, you know, just like take it and leave, perhaps. Like, cool iteration, cool idea. I've done an hour. This is more than last week, but I am rapidly approaching the point where I can't form coherent sentences. Yeah, speaking of that, it's becoming bad. So what I'm going to do is, while I still have while I still have some dignity and a sliver of capability to produce English sentences, I'll politely thank you for watching. Type carrot in the comment section if you are watching the VOD to this point for some reason, and I will respond with a potato emoji if there is a potato emoji. I'll respond in some fashion. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. This will probably not be the last iteration, and even if it will be the last line iteration, I'll have more drawing and like rendering iterations to go through, so this might reappear at a later date depending on how much of it I do offline and how much I want to talk and such. I'll never know. I am making this stuff up as I go along. Yeah, so once again, thanks. I should really work on not making outros extremely long and rambly, but I guess this entire thing is just extremely long and rambly, so if you've made it this far, you surely have a certain affinity for me rambling, so maybe not. Maybe I'll just enlongen the intros the outros instead, just like that. Anyways, bye. Yeah, the button's right there. I'm stopping the